All right, so everyone, this is Matt D Talford, your favorite storyteller, and I wanted to get back into the conversation or the discussion about inspiration. Once upon a time, I did a speaking engagement where I spoke about inspiration, and as I mentioned before, for inspiration to take place, there are two critical ingredients that are necessary. One, there has to be some source of motivation, an outside or an external source of motivation. Something motivates you to do something. Could be something you heard, could be something you felt, could be something you saw. Something has to motivate you to do something, okay? And then the second element that is required for inspiration to take place is a decision to act, okay? Now let me give you some examples. Watching tennis when I was a kid, I liked watching John McEnroe was my favorite. I grew up watching John McEnroe, and after him, I watched a little Chris Evert, Martina Navratilova, Steffi Graf. She was my favorite female player prior to the advent of the Williams sisters, and of course Serena's my favorite now. But anyway, watching those players inspired me to take up tennis. Now I was motivated to play the sport by watching. It was like, ooh, I think I can do that. But until I make the decision to pick up a racket and go out and hit some balls and see what it's like to actually play the game, how can I say I'm inspired to play tennis? You are never inspired to do anything that you have not acted upon. Okay, so you hear a lot of people, what is your inspiration? People say, well, my inspiration to do this or that was this, okay? And typically when they say my inspiration to do something, is they're usually talking about that motivation piece. But a person never says my inspiration to do this or that thing is that thing or that person without doing something themselves. You simply cannot say that you're inspired to do something until you've done something. That's how inspiration works. So I talk about inspiration a lot because, in the world of writing and in the world of being an author, a lot of people talk about, you read these things and you're in these different social media groups with other authors, and people are coaching you and pumping you up and saying, hey, did you write your 4 hours today? Or you're not a real writer if you're not writing X number of hours a day. And I simply don't subscribe to that. I don't believe in it. Because I don't write like that, okay? I was in a rap group when I was in high school, and if my boys that were in that group with me are watching this, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. We would meet on Saturdays, and the group's leader would come with a new instrumental track that would, we would have these writing sessions where he'd play these instrumental tracks, and we write rhymes to them. And more often than not, I had writer's block. I simply could not write to this piece of music or write under these conditions or these terms, or someone saying, hey man, you got to do this because we got to get these new raps ready for this particular event or whatever. And so eventually I ended up falling away from the group because I've never been that type of writer. If I'm not inspired, if there's not a source of motivation that inspires me to write something, I just don't. And so, when it comes to being a professional writer, an author, and someone who writes professionally, not just books, but blog posts and different thoughts that I'll even put on social media or poetry or something. If I don't have a source of inspiration, which in this case is something that motivates me to do it, I don't write. I don't write. So I'm not someone who's just going to pick up the pen and start writing because someone says you're not a real writer if you're not writing this number of hours a day. I've published 3 books already. I know a lot of people, and I'm not saying that to brag, that is just how I move. That's my flow. I write when I'm inspired to do so, and I write until there's nothing left in me. I pour it out, and I stop writing when there's nothing left in me. So typically, that is what a day in the life of an inspirational writer is. And when I say inspirational, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm writing something that I hope will inspire someone else per se. When I'm saying that I'm an inspirational writer, I'm simply saying that I do not write unless I am motivated by a thought or a thing that I see or a conversation or something that I experience. My experiences motivate me to write. I'm inspired by this experience or that experience to write. And so that's what I mean when I say inspirational writer. So anyway, I'm at 5 minutes. I didn't mean for this to go on so long, but I'm hoping that this will help someone else, that maybe there's someone else out there that needs to hear this. But I want to get away from the writing and because this has to deal with life in general. For inspiration to take place, you must have an external source of motivation, or internal if you want to get technical, because it could be a thought or a feeling. And then you got to have a decision to act. Okay, the guy that says, man, Michael Jordan inspired me to play basketball, is typically someone who plays basketball. You don't see a couch potato saying, man, I'm inspired by Jordan. Inspired to do what? What are you going to do? That kid that says Michael Jordan inspired him to pick up the sport of basketball and excel or achieve, that is the kid that watched Jordan play, that got motivated. It stirred up a feeling inside of him, and he said, you know what? I want to do that. And so he proceeded to get a basketball and find the nearest court or gym and go out there and start practicing. He was inspired. But that guy that's sitting on the couch saying, I'm inspired to do, you're not inspired until you might be motivated to do it. And we all know people that we try to motivate and they don't do anything. Motivation is it's 50-50. You can pour all the motivation you can into a person, but until they decide to act, you're just wasting your energy trying to motivate them. Now, when you've motivated them and then they decide to act, then what has happened is you've inspired them to do something. That's the way inspiration works. So anyway, didn't mean for this to go past a few minutes, and sometimes these things just pour out. It's you just witnessed kind of what happens when I'm writing, And here's the last thing I'll say about writing, because I want to say this. I feel compelled to say this. Okay, when you are a writer, there's a lot of writers out there that are doing a lot of great work, and I'm certainly, you're not going to see me necessarily write a bad review on another author or something, because I just won't do a review. And that's personal, because as an author myself, if this is how I eat, I'm not going to block how someone else eats because I have a different opinion of their work or whatever, or an opinion that may not be so favorable. So that aside, I will say this. There's some authors out there that have some work to do. Do you? But I'm just going to say, for me, I don't write fluff. So if you're aspiring to be an author, not inspiring, aspiring. If you're aspiring to be an author, if you were to ask my advice, I would say, don't write fluff. Don't write fluff. Write what it is that you have to pour out and cut it off. Don't worry about word count. Don't worry about how many pages is this book going to have or whatever. Quality over quantity is what's key. If you want to build a base of readers, loyal fans or whatever, quality over quantity. Page count means nothing if you've got 300, 400 pages and only 75 of them have interesting content, okay? Or 300, 400 pages and only half of them have interesting content. You've wasted that reader's time and probably your own trying to achieve some word count or page count goal. That your goal should never be word count or page count. Your goal should be to pour out what you have in you to pour out, okay? And so that's all I'm going to say about writing. Keep that in mind, please. If you're going to write, think quality over quantity. That's my only advice to any aspiring writers out there. That's about it for me. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And I do appreciate you hanging in there. Remember, inspiration, you got to have motivation and a decision to act. If you don't have motivation, how can you be inspired? If you don't decide to act on it, how can you say you're inspired? Anyway, peace. And as I always say, Maddie loves you.